Indie Pod Podcast. I'm your host, Super Joe Pardo, and tonight I have a great guest to bring to you. He happens to run Podcast Magazine, and we're talking profiting from podcasts. Sorry, we started out a little late tonight. Wasn't sure if our guest tonight was going to make it, but it looks like he has made it into the green room. So I am super excited to have him join us in just a minute. I have a couple of little announcements I wanted to make, as well as to give a shout out to our sponsor, Podbean, which sponsors this show. Let me see here. Where is my notes at? I am totally dropping the ball. Here we go. All right, so yeah, Podbean is bringing this episode to you. Podbean is an easy and powerful way to start podcasting. They give you all the tools you need for a successful podcast, such as unlimited podcast hosting, podcast distribution, monetization options for podcasts of any size, and live stream podcasting capabilities. Sign up today at www.podbean.com. That's podbean.com. Looks like we got some people. Eric, what's up, man? How you doing? Ross is in the house. Yeah, Jersey is definitely well represented right now. Thank you, Brett. I greatly appreciate that. It means a lot to me. Eric was asking who is wild and who is crazy, because Larry Roberts was saying I know a couple of wild and crazy guys that were featured in March and April, like the calendars. I don't know who's March and who's April, but I guess we'll find out. Ross is saying hi to Karen. I don't know is that Karen Yankovitz that's watching right now. What's up, Karen? Say something in the chat. Hey, Lorraine, how you doing? So tonight we are talking podcasting magazine. We're talking profiting from podcasts, and I need all of you right now to give a big warm. Well, oh wait, actually, before we do that, there was theme music. Did anybody else hear this? There was actual theme music. I finally got around to bringing theme music to the show. But anyway, right now, we'll talk more about that later. Right now, I need you to give a big warm super claps in the chat for Super Steve Olsher. Woo! What's up, man? How you doing?
How you doing?
I'm wonderful. I'm wonderful. Is your day going well?
You know, it's a lovely day in the neighborhood. What's not to like?
Every day, every single, even days where we have to like keep 6 feet apart.
Word. Yeah, man.
So Steve, for anyone who doesn't know you, first of all, did I get your name right? The Olsher?
Yeah,
okay,
nailed it.
I pronounced it right. Awesome. For anyone who doesn't know you, doesn't know Podcast Magazine, give some background, please.
Yeah, long story short, man, I've actually been podcasting since 2009, off and on, consistently since 2015 with Reinvention Radio. And then about 2 years ago or so, we launched Beyond Eight Figures. And so always had a love for the medium. I went all in on it about 2.5 years ago, created an event called the New Media Summit, where we give 150 attendees the opportunity to take center stage and pitch top podcasters on who they are and what they do. And they literally get booked on the spot. And about 5 months ago now, it seems like it's been longer, but really only about 5 months ago or so, came up with the idea for a consumer-facing magazine, not an industry rag, but really something that's kind of Sports Illustrated, or Wired, or something that's consumer-facing, that's really geared towards podcast fans. And within 100 days, Podcast Magazine was born. So that's the podcasting side of the story. There's a whole bunch of entrepreneurial stuff outside of that as well.
That's awesome. I love the speed in which you worked. I can appreciate that. I do things similar at a similar pace, from idea to putting it to paper to getting it off and running. So that's greatly appreciated. Now, would you like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much would you say that helps you versus hinders you?
You talking about having the magazine?
No, having that
speed.
that speed, that willingness to like, I'm gonna create this like I had a dream, I had a
Yeah.
thought, I was in the shower and I had this great idea, and then bam, we're gonna take it right to the bank there.
Yeah. I mean, look, speed wins every time, and in this case, I would certainly say that there are some folks who would argue on the side of, you never want to be first to the game, no matter what the game is. In this case, I would actually argue otherwise. I believe that what we have really done here is establish first mover advantage. And quite frankly, I think had we been second to the game, that would have worked to our detriment. So I'm a huge proponent of, in most cases, speed winning every time. There are, of course, exceptions to that rule.
Yeah, I mean, well, because I think a lot of times it comes down to how much you're willing to not pivot, but to make adjustments on the fly. And like, oh, I'm gonna live and die by the way. Like, remember how I drew it up on that bar napkin? Like, that's how we're living and dying by this. There is no change. It's we're burning the boats and we're going forward. And it's like they forget, like, hey, you were first, and you have an opportunity to like make tweaks and like say, oops, we got it wrong the first time around. Let's make better. Let's do better this time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, version 1 is going to be better than version none, and you're never going to get it exactly right the first time. One of my private clients, he preaches all about a 4-step process, which I love. Which is, first you get it done, then you get it right, then you get it right all the time, and then you teach it to others. So, realistically, you got to get it. You just got to get it done, and then you got to get it right. Though I will say, we've assembled a pretty damn good team here of 20 something odd people, and even our first iteration of the magazine that came out with Glenn Washington on the cover, February 1st. That February issue is not dramatically different than you see now in the current issue. Actually, that's dropping tomorrow.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And of course, one of our listeners right now, Larry Roberts, is featured in what was it, in March or April's magazine?
Not sure what's the name of the show. I might actually remember off the top of my head.
Oh, Readily Random.
I don't have any idea. It might have been in the Hot 50. We do every month.
It was yeah.
So every month we do our Hot 50 chart, which is the only chart created by fans for fans, and people just vote, so it's automatically populated. So I don't actually always see what ends up on that chart. So he's probably on there.
Oh, okay. That I guess that would make sense then. So what? How does the magazine fit into the rest of what you do? Because you said it's like it's a consumer facing magazine. How does that fit in with the rest of your entrepreneurial ventures?
Yeah, so my personal philosophy is you've got to be really clear on what conversation you most want to be a part of. And so for me, as I said, about 2.5, 3 years ago or so, I decided that I really want to be a part of the podcasting conversation. Did the best I could, put out my shows, hoping for big numbers. And, it's quickly become apparent that I'm not going to compete with a Joe Rogan. I'm not going to compete with a Dave Ramsey. I'm not going to compete with the bigger folks who have these huge numbers behind every single show. And so if I wanted to be in the conversation of podcasting and get my seat at the table, it then became a question of, how am I going to do that? Because, my name, right, Steve Olsher, I am not going to just be in that conversation on the merits of Reinvention Radio or Beyond 8 Figures alone. So I wasn't ready to throw in the towel. I was really sitting there saying, I don't want to be just a spoke on a wheel. I don't want to be just one of hundreds of thousands of podcasts. I want to be in the conversation when people talk about podcasting. How do I become the hub of the wheel that all of these various spokes throughout the vertical want to connect to? And so that's really where the idea for Podcast Magazine was born. And in answer to your question, Joe, by having the magazine, obviously it's credibility, obviously it's authority. it opens doors in ways that I could not open those doors on my own. I could not ask Katie Couric to sit down for Reinvention Radio. Yet Katie Couric was more than happy to sit down to be on the cover of our second issue. You know, Adam Carolla, Dave Ramsey. I'm not throwing these names out just, to drop names, but it's just quickly brought to our world, though, a certain level of credibility that our shows on their own weren't going to have. And so the bottom line is, with that credibility, with that piece in place, are we going to sell more products, programs, and services that we offer? Absolutely, hands down, unequivocally.
Well, so I see there's printed magazines behind you, so it is a physical magazine. I think
it is. Yeah, hold that thought.
Okay.
Yeah, we do it digitally, but we also do a limited print run of each of the magazines. So wow. We our goal. I mean, and there's the Hot 50 we were talking about. I mean, our goal is to get this is 148 pages, man, of pure content. Like, we've got almost zero ads in this thing. So we got the content piece right first, and everything else will follow from that. But no, it's primarily digital. And we do a limited print run of each. But I want to see this thing on stands everywhere, because it's that good, and I believe that the medium is headed in that direction.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, I got a copy from Podfest.
Yeah,
in the bag. Yes, okay.
You did.
I thought I did. It's been. I haven't really looked in the bag recently.
Yeah, you would have got Glenn Washington. Yeah, the inaugural issue is what we dropped into Podcast Movement Evolutions, and then at Podfest.
That's awesome. So you So that's got to be expensive, like to produce physical 140-page magazines.
Yeah, it is not an inexpensive proposition
at that. Yeah.
But
I think it's really essential. Like, and I'm sure you agree. Like, it's got to be really essential early on if you want people to take it seriously. Like, even if it's in a limited run, it's a physical thing that exists.
Yeah. And look, Joe, reality is, for the better part of 30 years as an entrepreneur, I've always tried to play at the highest possible level that I could, whether it was in the catalog world or launching on CompuServe's Electronic Mall in 1993, or with Liquor.com, which I owned since 1998. I always try to play at the highest level. And there's a couple of different reasons for doing that. Not the least of which is, you got to set you got to kind of build that moat, right? Create a barrier to entry. And the reality is, if I was going to go all in on creating a consumer-facing magazine that we wanted to be, really become the preeminent publication for the magazine that is geared toward, for the industry that's geared towards podcast fans, we got to do it the right way. And so, we've invested significantly, all bootstrapped, 100%, haven't raised $1 of outside capital, no Kickstarter, no anything. But we wanted to set the bar pretty damn high, which included, hell, if you're going to call a magazine something about podcasts, what are you going to call it? So Podcast Magazine, obviously made the most sense. And we had to go out and buy that domain too. It was not, it wasn't like one of those $8 things.
I'm sure that was an expensive proposition.
It was one of those borderline numbers. It was just enough that I had to pause and think about it. It wasn't so much.
It wasn't five figures, right? You didn't pay.
It was definitely not five figures. Now I'll tell you, it was $22.50.
Oh, okay, that's not. That's not. I paid a lot of money for my own name,
right?
What I considered a lot of money at the time was like $1,000 for my JoePardo.com, and I don't even use it. I use SuperJoePardo.com. So, but you got to own it, right? That's the trick.
Yeah, absolutely.
So so you're, I definitely applaud the fact that you're putting it together. So you have, obviously you have writers, because you're not producing all of that content yourself. And as Regina Rosa Celeste says, good friends with Tammy Patzer, one of the writers for the magazine. So how many writers do you have on board to work on this? Because that's a lot of content, man, to produce.
It is. You can see on the masthead. That's the team, and we got 25 odd people working on the magazine every single month, and what we did is we decided, look, let's bring in what we're calling a category director to be responsible for each of Apple's top level podcast categories. So, business and history and society and culture and et cetera, et cetera. So we actually have a dedicated category director who does a feature article for each issue, who does either an under the radar review, which is bringing light to shows that the public probably hasn't heard of, but should be listening to. And they do a selection for off the charts, which is their podcast pick of the month for their particular category. And so, every single month we've got an article, an under the radar, or sometimes I do overrated, which is taking on a show you probably have heard of, but might want to question listening to, and a selection for off the charts. And by the time you get all said and done with the sit downs that I do, again, with people like, Jordan Belfort and Katie Couric and Lynn Washington and, these sort of folks and some of the other features that we do, every month we're stacked over 140 something pages. The Mother's Day issue coming out is 150. So there you go.
Wow, that is quite a bit of content. And then
that's a lot of content.
Who is getting these limited run magazines? Like, how are you distributing, or are you selling? Like, I assume you'd sell them, right? Like,
yeah. We're not. Yeah, so we're not actually selling the physical copies right now. We're doing, let's just call it strategic placement in terms of getting them into the hands of people who have influence in the industry, going to industry events like Podcast Movement and Podfest, et cetera. We are going to be moving into a commerce model here, right? Actually, until June 1st. We're giving away free lifetime subscriptions. So it's been free up until this point, obviously on the digital, but on the print, we're gonna add a print option here very, very soon. Again, by June 1st, we'll be shifting over to a paid model altogether.
Wow. Okay, cool. So if you want to get in on this, what website do you have to go to get your lifetime free subscription?
Yeah, real simple. Podcastmagazine.com, right? Keep it simple.
Bam, look at that. All right, cool. So everyone should go and get their lifetime free subscription to Podcast Magazine over at podcastmagazine.com. So how's the, I mean, clearly you all right, so clearly you have a team. How hard was it to convince people to, like, hey, can you start producing content and we're going to put it in this magazine? And I'm putting my own money behind it, and you're gonna, in theory, be able to get a print copy of at least, the first couple of magazines or whatever.
Yeah, Joe. I mean, it was surprisingly easy, and I don't want to sound flippant about that, because it's certainly we recognize the tremendous efforts that the category directors are putting in every single month. On the same token, they also understand, and the positioning here is we really want to help them become influencers in their own right in this industry. And by being that critic, by being that voice that actually says, hey, here's what you want to be looking at, thinking about, talking about, doing, considering in the category of business, right? And so, like Michelle Schaefer, as an example, is a category director of business. I mean, she's got that's a catbird seat right there. I mean, literally anyone who has a business podcast is coming to her saying, hey, let's sit down. So, I mean, it builds her credibility, builds her authority, ups her influence. And so that was one of our promises going in, is say yes to this, and we will really help you become an influencer in your own right. And that has proven to be the case.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's a ton of work, obviously, but it definitely puts you in the right position.
And it's a ton of visibility for them too, right? I mean, they've got the byline, they've got the photo. We drive people to their podcasts, and so we try to make it very circular, where we benefit, our readers benefit, and they benefit as well.
Yeah, definitely. So where in all of this, like, where would you like to see this heading?
Sure. I honestly believe that we will see a Spotify, or let's just play it out in a couple of different directions. On the acquisition front, I think this becomes an acquisition target pretty quick. I think that there are people who are going to want to have this sort of voice for the industry and have the voice that is consumer facing that doesn't currently exist in an unbiased, comprehensive way in the manner that the magazine offers. So I think that there is that, whether it's a Spotify, as I said, or whomever. I believe that in fairly short order, we're going to see folks coming to the table wanting to be involved with this. On the other side of that is, if we don't move in that direction, it's pretty inevitable that we'll see a partnership with a Condé Nast or one of the other types of players in the magazine space who specializes in getting these publications onto shelves, has a relationship with the quad printers of the world and so on, who can get these things out for, 30, 40 cents a pop, and also brings to the table the advertising relationships. Because to us, this is a lifestyle publication. We don't want to, there's a lot of great industry types of publications that have kind of mom and pop type podcaster ads in there. This is more of a lifestyle type of play in terms of how we're looking at it, where it's an Absolute Vodka taking out a full page ad. It's more of a Vanity Fair type advertiser than it would be somebody who goes into an indie business journal, as an example.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to think of it like there's a video, like a classic retro, I forget what it's called, but it's like a retro video game magazine that's printed out of the UK, and it's always like, it's like $20 some or something like that. But like I know a bunch of my friends are super into getting it when they're able to find them, because they're not always available, and obviously they're super thick like yours, and it's a ton of time and money goes into it. Plus, it's shipped over from the UK after printing. So
pricey.
yeah. So it is. I definitely see the market for a lifestyle publication for podcasting, because I mean, obviously it's growing, but it's still. I don't know that it's ever going to get synonymous to the point where, like, everyone's going to be like, I got to pick up that magazine for that thing, right? It's kind of like having like XXL, right? For hip hop, right? It's like, yeah, hip hop heads are gonna get it, but it's not like every person that knows about hip hop is gonna go get that industry magazine.
Yeah, well, the good news is we don't need all of those who love podcasts to want to be a part of this in order to get to a pretty solid valuation. So,
absolutely,
that's the good thing on it, right?
I think between the name, between the amount of people that you have like already dedicated to working on it, I think having that physical product, and not just saying it's like, oh, it's just a digital thing. And I don't want to diminish I mean, we're literally doing a digital thing right here, right now, right? So I don't want to totally diminish that, but only having the digital aspect of it, it doesn't make it as, I don't want to say legit, but let's say legit for the people that are in the industry, not podcasting, but the magazine industry.
Yeah.
They're gonna look at it and be like, yeah, that's a cool toy that you got there with your digital thing. But like, to me, like, having that thing is like having a big old trophy.
Yeah, and if you look at the demographics in terms of the people who are listening to podcasts, and certainly the people who are reading our magazine, we're skewing older. We are definitely skewing towards higher than average household incomes. And so, the God's honest truth is, when you look at magazines and what a magazine actually means to people and who it is meaningful to, the people that are gravitating towards what we're doing understand the value of a physical magazine. This is not something for millennials and Gen Zs and, that sort of thing. I'm 50 years old, and honestly, our demographic looks a lot like me. And we still like the physical form. And so the combination of the two is I think, going to be pretty powerful here.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I wouldn't have guessed that you were 50. That's awesome. looking great, man. Yeah, like not taking days off. That's for sure. That's awesome. So I like, all right. So let's get into talking a little bit more about podcasting and profiting from podcasting. What like what's some of your thought process when you were designing? I mean, clearly, I mean, you have two flags on your mic there, so you've had at least two shows, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's talk to me about some of your thought process behind putting that plan together. Like if I'm a podcaster and I'm like, or I'm just getting started as podcasting, or I've been podcasting for a little bit, but I haven't really put my game plan together. I haven't thought about. Walk me through your thought process of like, what do I got to do to make this profitable so I'm not just having fun?
Yeah. Well, obviously you want to have fun, right? It's got to be
Well,
something that's
yeah,
inspiring your soul and you want to be
yeah.
talking about it. But how do you make money from it? What's sort of that, what does that game
Yeah, I
plan
don't,
look
again,
like?
not trying to using the word just. I'm not trying to just. I'm not
I
trying
know.
to diminish it, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm only having fun. How about that? Only. I
Yeah.
need to change
Yeah.
the vernacular.
Yeah. Oh, good, man. So what I teach to my students is that everything starts with the offer. And so the idea here is you don't launch a podcast without a clear understanding of what the offer is and really having clarity around what your profit path is that leads people to whatever that last step is on the path. And so for us, the last step on the path that someone can take with our organization is a program called Icon Maker Elite, which is I work with 5 people a year, one-on-one, help them to become icons in their respective niche, right? I mean, I'm not going to go into all the details around that, but that is the last step on the path that someone can take with us. So the question is, how do I attract the most likely candidates to come into my world and bounce them into our ecosystem so that 5 people over the course of a year will say yes to the Icon Maker Elite program? And so what I'm working from is that point and coming back to what do I have to do today to attract the right people into my ecosystem. And so with the shows, if you look at Beyond 8 Figures as an example, Beyond 8 Figures features entrepreneurs who have either exited for more than $10 million or currently run businesses that gross more than $10 million annually. So there's a certain aspirational component to the show. People who are listening are people who are either starting out in business and want to, start that business the right way, or they're in the phase of scaling, or they're potentially looking to exit. And so when you think about the mindset of the entrepreneur, that entrepreneur ultimately is going to need what we have and what we can do for people. If you look at Reinvention Radio, that's another type of show there that more specifically what we focus on in Reinvention Radio is we focus on people who have reinvented their lives and just are dismantling the status quo in their respective niche as a result now and moving forward. I don't want to turn this into a commercial, but the point being people who are looking to reinvent their lives and are maybe at point A and they're looking to get to point B or whatever that story may be for them, they're going to need help in doing so. And so the people who tune into that show are also going to be then good candidates for what our core offerings are. But we design that from the beginning with understanding who our most ideal clients are. So the bottom line, Joe, is it's really, to me today, the most powerful thing that you can do when designing a show is think about designing it in a way that meets the criteria of what I call the new media trifecta, which means that the brand, the podcast name, and the online course are all of the same name, and ideally as niche as you possibly can, because you're not going to compete with the Joe Rogans. You're not going to compete with the bigger players. So you got to think about search and discovery.
Yeah. I don't even. You can't. Yeah, I don't think you could compete with the Joe Rogans. Without some massive amounts of marketing and like a decade and a half of doing like in front of the public eye, on like big time media and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it just isn't. It's just not realistic in most cases. So yeah. So if I'm hearing you correct, it's like start with the goal and then work backwards from that, and that's generally how I try to approach things too. Like figure out what the goal is and then figure out how I'm going to work my way backwards from there to get to it.
And I'll say this, that for 3 years, and it's funny because I start to see a lot of folks kind of regurgitate crap that I've been teaching for for years now. But back in 2017, I started teaching and preaching about really understanding that you've got to look at podcasting from the standpoint of leveraging the business of podcasting, as opposed to looking at podcasts, or having a podcast, if you will, as a business. Because for the majority of us mere mortals, we were not going to be able to generate enough income, enough revenue from a podcast on its own, in order to support the lifestyle or type of business entity that we want to create. So really, Joe, I mean, the bottom line is it just boils down to understanding how to leverage the business of podcasting and the holistic approach to what the medium offers, as opposed to just simply looking at it from the standpoint of, I'm going to build a podcast and then I'm going to be able to generate revenue from that.
Well, I in 2014 I made that mistake. I was, I was like, oh, I'm gonna start the show, and like the internet's gonna give me this big sack of money, and I'm just gonna like cash in, and we're just gonna roll with it. And then within like 2-3 months, I realized it wasn't a sprint; it was a marathon that I was running, and ultimately decided like, okay, I need to put together this game plan of like getting speaking gigs and getting coaching clients and writing books so I can have, something to sell, and putting programs together and all that. So like I, relatively quickly figured out that like, okay, I wasn't getting this big sack of money just because I turned on a microphone every single week. Well, in my case, I was doing it daily or 5 days a week at the time for one show.
Yeah.
So, but I think sometimes podcast people who want to get involved with it, they don't, it's sometimes it's hard to see that, and they also don't necessarily realize that like, yes, you can have sponsors are great, but sponsors can also be a big pain in the butt. Like there's a lot of like micro handling and making sure that they're happy. And apparently Anita loves the sound, so I'll play the cash register again. I'm glad my sounds are finally working this week.
Nice.
It's been it wasn't working last week, so I couldn't have my my sad trombone with me when I make mistakes throughout the show. But yeah, so it brings me to, so anybody who didn't hear earlier, we now have a theme song to the show. Did you hear this, Steve, when you rolled in?
I was dancing to it. Thank you for that.
I didn't look up to see or down to see. But for anyone who didn't hear it, I now have the ability to go along with all of these new sound effects that I have. I can play the theme song, which we didn't have before, to Indie PodCon, or Indie Pod Podcast. So now I can hit it before we go in, which is good because you don't know when it's going to go live. Like, just because, right? Like, So when you hit the go live button, it's like, it says it's going live, but like Facebook hasn't picked up the feed yet. So at least I figured if I have a few seconds of warm up before I get into my welcome everybody's, then I can, at least it's not going to look as weird. Great feng shui. Yes, I would agree. Anita. So it's good to have this working finally. Hopefully it continues to work for me, because I also have these features now. Not that anybody needs to hear me singing, but now I can sing. Is it working? Oh no, now it's working. I can do crazy things that.
Is that I'm trying to find the what's the little controller thingy called? It's
Stream Deck.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is that the one you're using?
I have a Stream Deck XL. I had the regular sized one, and I liked it so much that I was like, all right, I'm just gonna get the XL. I didn't want to spend the $250. I really, really didn't. But I'm like, for an extra $100, I get so many more buttons, and I can put everything right in front of me rather than not having it at all.
Yeah.
And I got to get some more sound effects, but I have like the record like scratching. I can like take a beating or give a beating out to somebody. Apparently. Can you hear me talking when I hit the censor button? Like, I'm just going to keep...
No.
You can hear me at all. How amazing is that? Now I can
so cool.
And censor myself.
Yeah, winner.
And I also got the ha.
Got him!
And the babumch and the
and
ding.
you can do Can you do the multi-camera from that, or do you need something else to do multi-camera?
So I could do multi-camera. I have multiple. I have like 4 webcams. I feel like a hoarder in this time where like basic webcams are going for $150. I have 4 of them, not
Nice.
including like my iPad and my like my MacBook and my other laptop and my phone and all these other. I'm surrounded by cameras, Steve. It's a problem.
Gear everywhere.
Yes, let's all take a drink. So yeah, so I could switch. I was thinking about setting up some multiple cameras for doing some remodeling here in the garage, and so once I get it straightened out, I will look at doing some like a camera, like so you can see the whole set, like me at my whole setup.
Sweet.
Yeah, so I definitely be doing that soon. And then I don't know if it'll work with StreamYard. I think they might have Stream Deck capabilities now, but I might have to go through like a separate program, like a virtual camera thing to make the switch happen without having to like go down to the camera mic and then like changing my camera, because like I have this camera too.
Yeah.
That's pointed out for VR, which there it goes. So like when we're playing VR and we
Nice.
stream VR live, like you can, I mean, it needs to be adjusted a little bit, but
Yeah.
you can at least see that. So I have multiple cameras. I just haven't gone through the issue of setting them all up. But
Nice.
I enjoy being able to like let's see.
I could be a baby like that.
Or I could be super dark.
Oh, man.
I could sing.
Talk like other singing.
Okay.
But yeah, so it works. I'm so excited to have it working, but mostly for the music and for the sound effects. It just makes things so much easier.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So I had to make a couple of announcements. So if you want to hang in there for me for a minute, Steve, while I bring up a couple of things. So if you haven't noticed below here, scrolling, we are doing a free live virtual community building for podcasters conference on May 16th. This will be the 4th virtual conference we've done since like the first one was like March 28th, I think. 28th, 29th. So this will be our 4th one that we've hosted, or when I say we, I mean me, have hosted, and we are accepting speakers. So if you want to go and speak, you have until Friday to submit your community building topic over at indiepodcon.com/virtual. We are looking forward to it. This one, I'm not sure who we're going to be raising money for this time. We raised, I think it was like $500 for No Kid Hungry last weekend when we held an 8-hour social media promotion for podcasters this past weekend, which was great. I absolutely enjoyed it. We had a wonderful time, raised a bunch of money, had a ton of 20 plus speakers. Hopefully this time we'll have close to 20-ish speakers, and I have some other things up my sleeve to make it fun, and the engagement was just amazing throughout the entire event. And if you want to sponsor that event, if you go to indiepodcon.com/virtual, there's a sponsorship button right there if you just scroll down a little bit. The other thing I want to talk about real quick is that, so if you had bought the IndiePod or the Icon Lifetime Virtual Ticket, yesterday I spent an enormous amount of time, too much time, Steve, way too much time, getting everything migrated over from Gumroad into the IndiePodCon website. So I am building the IndiePod University, indiepoduniversity.com. Because of course, right, Steve, you gotta have the domain name. So for the vanity, if nothing else. So this is like 60 plus hours of podcast talks, all wrapped in to a single site. And if you bought the lifetime ticket, or if you buy the lifetime ticket between now and when we launch in probably about a week or so, when I finally finish like fleshing out the internals of the membership side of the site, you will get lifetime access to the IndiePod University, which also includes a private Facebook group to get your questions answered, as well as access to every IndiePodCon event going forward, all pumped right into that website for viewing. So, and you can view it from, I mean, you can view it from anywhere. So it's not like a, oh, you got to sit in front of your computer. Like, open it up like on your phone and like go do some weeding or something within your headphones. Like it will absolutely work. So yeah, so it's going to be $10 a month, $9.99, $10 a month, or I think it'll be $99 a year subscription models. But if you bought the lifetime, or if you buy the lifetime package now for $99, you will have lifetime access forever. And we will also be doing a call once a month, like a group call once a month as part of that $9.99 to get your questions answered. So really looking forward to all that. Really looking forward to me having it launched and done. But it's you know what, Steve, it's one of those things, right, where you think about it and you're like, oh, it'd be really nice if I like brought all these videos that I already had in Gumroad and brought them over into like a website that I could like regularly recurring
like
income monetize,
like a membership site.
Yeah, like a membership site. Is that
they make those?
Like,
you might want to think about doing one of those, Joe. They make those.
So I've heard. It's it's honestly, from my portfolio, it's one of the things I'm sorely missing is a membership site. I built one back in 2015 called yourdreamplatform.com. Launched it, and part of the problem that I ran into was I had to create all of the content, and it's a lot, to create a enormous amount of content for a all you can eat buffet kind of price. So in this case, it's an all you can eat buffet kind of price, but I only have to create a small portion of that content versus everybody that's speaking and bringing in the content into the conference. So it's, or into our, I guess I should say, into our community. So it helps, right? Like, it's one less thing that I have to really put a ton of effort into to make it work. Plus we already have, like I said, 5 years of podcast conference talks, over 60 hours. So if you're interested, you can go buy the bundle right now at indiepodcon.com/bundle. That's the Icon Lifetime virtual ticket, $99. You'll have lifetime access forever to indiepoduniversity.com when it launches, like in a week or so. Anyway, Steve, back to you. So what, like, all right, so what other what projects have you had that failed?
Oh God.
I'm sure you have plenty, right? And by failed, I mean learn lessons from, because that's what we're all doing, right? We're learning at our own expense.
Right. I mean, this is a case of some serious PTSD I got going on. I mean, I think we're generally around the same age, but close.
No, we are not around the same age.
Not even close.
I am 75, man.
Okay, there we go. All right,
about?
that makes sense.
No,
all right, totally got it.
I am 33, so I'm
okay.
Not
so not even close. Okay, yeah. So let's
close.
I got a really small camera here, people. Don't be mad at Joe. There you go, real small. There you go, camera. All right. So anyway, long story short, our generation, the Gen Xers, is we've been pummeled. I mean, really just pummeled. I mean, when it was 1999, I had the S1 filed and I was ready to go public with liquor.com. And then we got, slammed in the .com bubble and that whole implosion there. Then, 9 years later or so, just really got murdered in the real estate bubble there. I had developed about $50 million in real estate properties. I mean, just from commercial and residential and office and so on. And then, some of them went really well and others, of course, got hammered in that meltdown. And now we've got what's going on here. And I know this is impacting a lot of people in some pretty powerful, just terrible ways. And so I can't, I feel for those who are experiencing this sort of hiccup, if you will, for the first time. But this is one of my mantras nowadays is, hug a Gen Xer, because I mean, we've been through the ringer, man. It's one thing to get knocked down and then have to start over, and it's another thing to have to do it again. But I mean, a lot of us in this generation are having to do it 3 times. So hopefully for some, it won't come to that. I mean, I feel more insulated now than I was during the last couple. But at the same token, who knows how long this is all going to last? You know, I mean, if this goes on for a long time, I'm going to, you know, there's no doubt I'm going to feel it too. So, you know, nightclub went well, then didn't. Catalog went well, then didn't. .com went well, then didn't. Real estate, I mean, you name it, man. And I think that's ultimately why I'm so attracted to the conversation around reinvention too, because I'm kind of the poster child for what it takes to have to consistently reinvent your life.
Yeah. I totally get it, man. We you know, I'm not much of a millennial, but me millennials came out of college with $100,000+ in debt and no jobs to go into in 2008. It was devastating. I mean, fortunately for me, I was in a much better place and I didn't really go to college, so it didn't matter. It didn't affect me as much as some other people I know. But yeah, I hear you. It's the .com bubble definitely sucked for a lot of people. I mean I've been building websites since 96, so you know 10 years old was building websites. It was front page, GeoCities, tripod, like these are the things. Dude, I was blogging back in like 96, 97 about my life. Like
you were there.
I was. I just, you know, I had a fake name so I could register as 18 years old, which so I live in the, Steve, I live in the house I grew up in, right? I bought it from my dad back in 2010 and, or 2009 actually. So, I still get mail to this day for that fake name that I was registering forever and ever and ever ago. It's kind of crazy. I guess the name just gets passed around on lists. but yeah, so I when it comes to reinvention, you what's some of the things that you feel has worked out for you from a mentality standpoint? Like I know you said like ready fire aim or fire ready aim kind of mentality, but like what's some of the principles that you work around that enable you to be able to reinvent?
I mean, I think ultimately you either do something because there is a significant amount of monetary upside, or you do something because you would do it even if you didn't get paid. And so ultimately, my ebbs and flows between those two has enabled me to see, you know, really both sides of the coin on what it means to make a lot of money doing something that is commodity driven versus doing something where there may not be that sort of money on the backside of those efforts, but throughout the process, you're able to really serve in the way that you're most compelled to serve and help those you're most compelled to help. And so, I mean, I honestly believe that the best of both worlds is the ideal place to land, where you can get paid extraordinarily well for what comes as naturally to you as breathing, and really does put fire in your soul. And so for me, I think it's definitely taken quite a bit of time in order to get to that place. But I wrote the book, What is Your What? Because for most of my adult life, I've struggled with that question of how am I naturally wired to excel? And so I think I'm as close to being able to answer that question properly now in terms of what is your what is my what, than at any point before in my career. So it's a nice balance of the two, and a nice mix that allows me to serve, but also allows me to reap the benefits of those efforts.
And I'm curious on your end, because it sounds like we have a lot of the similar like thought processes. What do you find as you get older that it's harder for you to like shift gears? Like, is it getting harder to shift gears? Like, let me
put it to you this way, and so
because I know I have, and I'm not even that old.
No, dude, you got nothing but time. All right, so but here's what I know to be true. is especially, and it's a great question because this is something that I've been thinking about more and more. And what I have become really clear on is that we only have so many blocks of time with which to focus on a particular endeavor. And so for you, I mean, let's say that you've got a 5-year block to do what it is that you're doing in the world of podcasting. And if that doesn't work out, you can reinvent, just try to start over, whatever, and really focus on whatever that next 5-year period is going to be. So the older that you get, the amount of energy that you have diminishes. It's certainly greatly reduced. No matter, I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for the better part of 20 years. And so one of the things that we talk about is, you just can't teach 20-year-old strength. Like, that's not a technique. You either have it or you don't. So in the world of entrepreneurship, it also holds true from the standpoint of you only have so many 5-year blocks left with which to be able to do what it is that you want to do. Because I will tell you, by the time I hit 70, the energy that I have even now at 50, again, is going to be greatly diminished. So it's an exponential, that energy is exponentially decreasing with every 5-year block. And so the point being, I have to be really aware and vigilant about what I decide to invest my next year, my next 5-year block into, insofar as time, energy, and resources are concerned.
No, I didn't feel that way until
and you shouldn't.
Well, hold on, until having 2 kids in the last 4 years. That has
Well, then there's that.
Great, yeah, like that was like 2 vampires came to my house. It was like, I'm sucking the life out of you so that I can live. Like, thank you for your contribution.
Yeah, and frankly, I've got a friend who had twins when he was 50. I can't even imagine doing it. I mean, my kids are 16 and 13 now, and having them home with the homeschooling and the quarantine, the whole nine. I mean, it's not crazy because they're old enough to take care of themselves and do what they need to do for the most part, right? And they're 16 and 13. If you had 5-year-olds, kids that were just going into kindergarten, and they were there, all day, and then all of a sudden, you get the quarantine. Now you got them all day without a break. It's just, it's the same thing in business, right? You look at the energy that would take to have those 2 kids at home all day, every day. If they're 5, you have to, it's a young man's game. It's a young woman's game. I mean, you have to have that type of energy. Same thing with starting a business. Same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so our 4-year-old is in preschool. She was going 2 half days a week. But now, like, she's doing the online schooling, and they're like connecting in for Zoom meetings every 3 or 4 times a week. And it's only for like 30 or 40 minutes, but like keeping her engaged with the screen, where it's not like cartoons and, trolls singing or something, like it's
crazy.
It's difficult. Like it's really tough. We're fortunate enough that my wife doesn't have to work, but it's a lot. It's a lot on me. It's a lot on her and for me to be here every day now, is a lot. It's a lot on both of us.
For sure.
But I would say that like we're both of us are super fortunate that we're able to be home and be able to do our thing and make it, and still be comfortable, even though the potential for the future of like catastrophic like destruction in our financial lives is still like looming in the future if things don't turn around. Now, with that said, New Jersey apparently is opening up golf courses and state parks on Saturday. So, and we have some of the most testing cases in the country. So, how that's going to work out, who knows?
We'll know soon enough.
Yeah, man. I tell you, I'm not going golfing or going to the state park. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I'll just stay home.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having me on, and being able to hang, and love everything that you're doing. We'll have to figure out how to get Podcast Magazine playing with all the fun stuff you're up to.
Well, thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. Please plug everything that you got, your shows and the magazine, and how people can get in touch with you.
Thanks, man. let's just have folks, I mean, let's just send them to Podcast Magazine, right? I mean, just podcastmagazine.com. Best place to start. You get to know me and all the fun stuff I'm up to there. And love to have you join that community. And as we talked about earlier, we're still giving away free lifetime subscriptions until June 1st. So love to have you on board.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go register right after after we get off this call,
Sweet.
and you should too. You absolutely should too. You, Steve, that's who I'm talking to.
Yes, I will. I'm on it.
All right, everybody. I really appreciate you, Steve, coming on tonight and having a great conversation. This episode is brought to you by Podbean. Podbean makes it easy. It's easy and a powerful way to start podcasting. They give you all the tools you need for a successful podcast, such as unlimited podcast hosting, podcast distribution, monetization options, and even live streaming podcast capabilities. Sign up today, www.podbean.com. That's podbean.com. Next week, I'm pretty sure, I'm going to check because I didn't get a chance to bring it up, but I'm pretty 99% sure it is the blind blogger, Maxwell Ivy, coming on the IndiePod podcast. I'm super excited to have him, get a good chance to catch up with him and see everything that he's got going on. I hope you and your families all stay safe as we continue to go through this crazy thing called life on the COVID-19 Express. All right, everybody, take care.